We are back, and while you would normally see me covering the NFL, the NBA, or the NCAA landscape of football, not a lot has happened up to this point, although there have been more NFL news and more NBA news creeping in gradually, so I'll get to that in time. But it has to take a back seat today because history took place yesterday as five different players would be elected into the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York last I'm not gonna say night, it was still the daytime when it happened, but all of them are very much deserving of it, and all of them were great players, from Billy Wagner to CC Sabathia to Ichiro Suzuki, and also the late and great Dave Parker and Dick Allen. Now, for the latter two, both of some of their family members were there to represent them and see their inscriptions placed into the Hall of Fame. But nonetheless, it made for a truly beautiful moment overall to have the widow of Dick Allen and also the son of Dave Parker step up and give pretty riveting speeches, to say the least. And I mean, when you look back at their careers and also the way they were genuinely talked about by some of these other people, they certainly had the numbers, but all of them had such a great effect on people around them, and also set a great precedent for players after them who followed in their footsteps in some fashion. I mean, you had some of the friends of Dick Allen, for example, there speaking on his behalf. You had a player, or a person rather, in Dave Parker's life who ended up meeting him at a baseball game just looking for an autograph. And from that point on, that person, who was now 70 years old, was there attending this. They cultivated a friendship over such a long time. Something pretty special. And then, CC Sabathia, for example, being one of the black aces as well, referring to black pitchers who make the Hall of Fame, and him kind of speaking to the notion that he certainly doesn't want to be the last one in there through the work that he's done outside of his playing career. That's definitely something you can get behind, whether or not you're a baseball fan. Again, the impacts that these players have outside of the game is an even greater testament to what they were doing during this time. But of course, the numbers don't hurt. I mean, we're talking about players like Billy Wagner, who had one of the lowest ERAs, and he was a reliever for the brunt of his career. CC Sabathia playing just unrelenting baseball as a pitcher. Apparently, they cited multiple times in just a half season in Milwaukee, he played 7 complete games. And he was a very burly pitcher, to say the least, in his active playing career. So for you in a half season of work to get through 7 complete games and get Milwaukee to the playoffs in this time, it wasn't for nothing. Rarely today do you see pitchers get 7 complete games across 3 entire seasons, because that's just not the stage that it's at anymore. So CC Sabathia was certainly one of the last of his kind when it comes to that sort. Although you have a lot of current pitchers today who might have, trajectory to outpace him in some other numbers. You can't teach that kind of grit he possessed on the mound. And also, Dick Allen and Dave Parker were some of the more essential players in the early 1960s, 1970s, and 1980s. Again, with a lasting effect on every single teammate they had for the most part. Allen was just quite an interesting character. You know, multiple people cited his look. They cited the fact that he carried around a 42-ounce bat. And clearly, he generated a lot of power with it. Because he was one of the more feared players on his teams. Same with Dave Parker, standing at 6'5" in that era. And being a multi-sport athlete, carrying that over to baseball and dominating the game in that way. Certainly hadn't really seen that go down before. You would see smaller guys dominate that kind of role in the MLB prior to Dave Parker and other players of that sort. And then the world famous Ichiro Suzuki, the first Japanese-born position player to play in the MLB and the first Asian-born player to make the Baseball Hall of Fame. Starting out as a rookie at the age of 27 due to MLB rules that stated you could not play in the MLB up until a certain point at that time. As I've kind of looked around and seen just how many Japanese players are getting earlier starts in the MLB, that rule has clearly changed around a little bit. And a lot of that comes from Suzuki's influence. Comes right in, sets an MLB record for hits in a season with 262, wins the Rookie of the Year and the MVP for the AL, and then just goes on for a great portion of the rest of his career, even as he was getting older, just being a model of consistency and becoming one of 7 players to get 3,000 hits and 500 stolen bases in their career. All of those talents and all of those numbers are well deserving of being in the Hall of Fame. Again, at least you would say that most people would view that as such outside of one stupid writer who didn't give Ichiro a unanimous bid for the Hall of Fame. That one writer prevented him from having a 100% entry probability. Shit is just fucking crazy. But nonetheless, that is how the 2025 class would go. And conversations have already started about the 2026 class, which is really what this video is going to focus on for the most part. Now, I looked around a little bit, and they mentioned a few names, so I figured that I'm just going to go through a solid amount of these and see what the cases would hold for these people. So, to get things started, they would mention some of the leading vote getters from the bid last year who didn't make the cut. And they are, in order, Carlos Beltran, Andruw Jones, and Chase Utley. Now, for a guy like Carlos Beltran, as I'm seeing here, this is his 4th year of eligibility. He was a center fielder who made his debut in 1998 and went on to become a 9-time All-Star, a 2017 World Series MVP, a 3-time Gold Glover, and a 2-time Silver Slugger across multiple teams. He played with the Royals, he played with the Astros for some time, he played with the Mets, he played for the Giants, the Cardinals, the Yankees, the Rangers, and then had another stint with the Astros to end off his career. In his situation, when you look at his overall career, he got over 2,700 hits, had 435 home runs, and also had a pretty good batting average throughout his career of 279. Honestly, when you look at his overall output, there's a solid case for him. I mean, for him to have 70.3% of the vote and miss is certainly tough, especially when you consider that he's going to reach the halfway point next year, because after your 10th year of eligibility, you're just going to be eliminated, I believe. That's how it works. Though you see, or at least you get less of a look after your 10th year, because you have, obviously, like, guys like Allen and Wagner have been retired for years now. Wagner, if the case is true that you get eliminated after your 10th year, Wagner just got it. Because this would have been like, he retired in like 2012, 2013, so this would be like year 8 of eligibility for him or so. But no, for Beltran, yeah, he has some pretty good cases. For example, in 2006, he had a 4th place finish in MVP voting with a Gold Glove, a Silver Slugger award, and an All-Star appearance in a season that saw him get 41 home runs and 116 RBIs on a .275 batting average with the Mets. And it's in the prime of his career. Now, he had some great seasons beforehand, but in the tail end of his career, as he got older and older, you know, he had solid seasons for his age, but one could argue if they do stack up against other competition still on the line here. So you have to ask yourself in that case, I mean, 20 years, the longevity is clearly there, and the numbers are pretty damn good to get into the Hall of Fame. But would people want him to get in at this time? I'm not sure. I would think that he can. You know, even if he's never accomplished a regular season MVP, that doesn't always matter. To have that, even if it did come on his final leg, and you had a case of a player who had his earliest years of production behind him before he was ever able to accomplish a championship win, that could give voters from the Baseball Writers Association of America some cause for pause. But again, like I say, you know, he's got most of the numbers you will want in a position player candidate for the Hall of Fame right now. So he shouldn't be overlooked for much longer, even if he might not get in this year. Moving on to Andruw Jones. This has been a player that I have heard about for years. Simply put. Now, he's got a lot of the same accolades as Beltran. If you really think about it, some of the numbers seem to be on par a little bit. 434 homers per him. Batting average dips a little bit, and he did not reach the 2,000 hit mark. But at the same time, when it comes to Gold Gloves, when it comes to Silver Slugger awards, he's got 10 Gold Gloves and a single Silver Slugger award while being a 5-time All-Star. Even if he wasn't necessarily known for his offense, despite having a season in which he put up 51 homers and 126 RBIs, 128 RBIs rather, in 2005, en route to a second place finish in MVP voting that year. His defense is regarded as some of the best in history. Straight up. He ended up getting an overall WAR of 62.7 across his playing career. And again, that damn defense, that fielding, was consistently high for him throughout his career. To the point where he, in 4 different seasons, was tops in his league in defensive WAR with 3.9 in 1998, 2.7 in 2000, 3 in 2001, and 2.3 in 2002. His overall defensive WAR ranks 22nd in history. And if I look at this, I see some of the other names on here. You have guys like Ozzie Smith. You have guys like Brooks Robinson, Cal Ripken Jr. on this list. Ivan Rodriguez on this list. A lot of these guys are Hall of Famers. Andruw Simmons being up here is pretty crazy, and he is not. At least, I don't even think he's eligible for consideration right now. But that just goes to show you, when you look at this overall list and you stack his attributes up against these guys, there's no reason why he shouldn't be a Hall of Famer at this point. It's been a huge debate over the last few years because with him currently being retired, having played his last game in 2012, this is his 9th year of eligibility. So he has this year and the next, and if he doesn't make it in either of these 2 years, his chances are either very slim or none whatsoever. And for that to be the case, almost seems criminal, to say the least, in his case. Like, the numbers are there. The appeal is there. Many people are clamoring for this, and yet it just hasn't happened yet. So, for him to be a second place finish last year behind Beltran and get another look is good. But it's like, damn, if he doesn't get in this year or next, he might never be able to. And that would be truly sad in his case. It feels like he's a player that is deserving of it. Like, again, even if he wasn't known for being a crazy bat or anything like that, he still had very productive seasons from that front. And if you have unquestioned defensive capability like he did during his playing career as one of the best defensive center fielders of all time, I mean, damn, like that's got to be worth something, right? So he's a player that should certainly get in. Even with me not having been old enough to even watch him play, just from what I've heard, what I've seen, yeah, he should certainly get in. Like, there's no question about it. Moving on to Chase Utley, he's in his 3rd year of eligibility as a second baseman, and he retired in 2018 as well. Now, for his career, from what I'm seeing here, he's got 6 All-Star appearances and 4 Silver Slugger awards, while also winning a 2008 World Series with the Phillies. He, in his career, had 259 homers, got just a touch under 1,900 hits, and also managed to get an 8th place finish in MVP voting in multiple seasons. Now, for him to get 39.8% of the vote, he seems more like a fringe person to get in. But this is another person who, off of defensive value alone, could see himself get in. I mean, looking at him, he had a 3.5 defensive WAR in 2008, and his overall career has him ranked 81st. So, again, there's definitely some potential there, but compared to Andruw Jones, you can see there's a little bit of a drop-off. So I feel like when it comes to a sort of debate between which one you would pick, you're probably going to go with Andruw Jones most of the time. Not to really disrespect Utley at all. But, hey, for Utley, What does show promise to me is that his percentage has increased. It was 28.8% in his first year of eligibility, and it jumped by 11 last year. So, hey, maybe it's just a matter of consistently seeing how he stacks up against other talent in this field. And, if he can manage that, down the line, he probably could get in. Right now, I don't know. Those are the leading three guys. And again, all of them have pretty good cases. Whether it be Beltran being here consistently, whether it be Andruw Jones having the combined resume, and also just the element of like, damn, bro, he's been waiting for this long already. Just get him in there. So Jones should certainly get in. And then, Utley is a player whose odds seem to be increasing every single year. I'm not too familiar with his overall career compared to some of the others. But, that's always fun. There's nothing wrong with that. If he's got the likelihood on his side, he could get in down the line. I just don't know if this could be his year specifically. But, hey, any number of things could happen. We'll see. They would also have other candidates listed here, and it's a bit of a wild ride, to say the least. To start things off, they label Cole Hamels as their type guy because they're ranking this by overall WAR, and he had 59 in his career. Now, Hamels is a former pitcher for the Royals, and in his career, he was a 4-time All-Star and had a NLCS MVP and World Series MVP in the same 2008 season. He holds a career ERA of 3.4 while accumulating 2,560 strikeouts and playing in 2,698 innings. The question that a lot of people have is that he might not have really been a pitcher who was all that dominant, to say the least. To outside voters, they may believe that there isn't a single season outside of that 2008 playoff appearance, even if he did get the overall numbers, that truly stands out to make him a pitcher worthy of entering the Hall of Fame. Like, it's hard to manage a pitching career in the MLB, but still, he did have a season where he had the highest whip rate in the league, the lowest rather, at 1.082 walks and hits per 9. He also had a season where he led in the MLB rather, with 2 shutouts. I don't know. There's not one single season here that truly stands out to me as being dominant. But again, longevity could factor in for him. When it comes to Hamels, this is Hamels' first year of eligibility. It could happen in the future, but I don't know. Especially with some of the other names here and some of the other pitchers that are up. I just don't know if you could definitively say that he'd be at this pace right now. It's just hard for me to see that. You know, like, if that could happen down the line, like, hey, I don't think this would be a problem. But for him to be a first ballot guy and have relatively underwhelming numbers compared to other first ballot pitchers, I couldn't see it happening. Now, here's where things get very interesting, because the next player they have up here with a WAR of 47.1 is Ryan Braun. Now, Ryan Braun honestly has the stats to get in. I mean, he won the MVP for the NL in 2011, a season in which saw him get 33 homers, 111 RBIs, lead the league in OPS and ROBA, while also getting a Silver Slugger award and an All-Star appearance. And he was also a 5-time Silver Slugger award and a 6-time All-Star overall, while amassing 352 home runs, getting 1,963 hits, and also averaging a .296 BA. A lot of his WAR is carried on the offensive end, and he's regarded, compared to some of the peers here, as one of the weaker position players when it comes to defense, which hurts his value overall, but not more than some of the questions surrounding the legitimacy of his earliest production as a Milwaukee Brewer. He spent all the seasons with them, by the way, which is pretty cool. But in 2013, he would miss essentially the rest of the season due to being suspended for potential PED and steroid use. And he took a plea rather, to just accept the suspension. You know, there have been questions on whether or not he actually used PEDs or steroids during the course of his career. But as we know, to just have that looming over your head in the first place, even if you were a very great player, could signal the death of your potential bid to enter the Hall of Fame. We've seen it time and again. And this is the interesting thing when looking at Ryan Braun relating to this. If Ryan Braun gets in his first year of eligibility, with all that in mind, what kind of precedent does that set for other players? Because let's be honest, even with their overall production, there have been multiple guys in the past who have been alleged users of steroids, who have been banned definitively from ever entering the Hall of Fame, to the point where it took a recent executive order from Trump in this second tenure to alleviate the bans of these different players. Guys like Shoeless Joe Jackson and Pete Rose, for example, both of them are dead now, by the way. So it's just a very interesting mind game to think about. Because if Ryan Braun gets in and you have people believing that he used these things, well, then to those guys, it just seems like the MLB is making that kind of conduct acceptable to where you can still get your way into the Hall of Fame while potentially cheating the game. And that was a theme that was talked about throughout all of the speeches as well. Not cheating the game, playing the game the right way. I don't think people, baseball purists especially, you know, I'm more of a, like, I am not going to act like I'm the most hardcore baseball fan. You know, I have deep connection to team, of course, but I'd be more on the casual side in this. So I can't speak for them at all. But I would think that some baseball purists out there would have a huge problem with having players enter the Hall of Fame with all of those questions looming over their heads. Still, they're their own independent body. They could do as they please. And there is a world in which he does get in at some point down the line, even if it's not in his first year. However, let's say that, hypothetically, he does get in as well on another end. What does that really do for baseball fans who have been waiting for years to see other players of that sort to get in? Because I'm going to be honest, when you compare some of the other players who were effectively banned from entering due to this, or who have been waiting for a longer period of time, some of those players have accomplished a lot more. I mean, Ryan Braun, for all of those seasons in mind, did not take his team on deep playoff runs at all. They did not win a single World Series during his tenure, despite those individual accomplishments. And then you look at some of the other guys who have not gotten in the Hall of Fame, like a Pete Rose, like a Barry Bonds, like a Mark McGwire, like a Sammy Sosa, who have been waiting for years, who have been effectively shunned from ever getting it. If Ryan Braun, a comparatively weaker overall contributor, gets in over those guys, that would send shockwaves everywhere. And it would make the MLB out to be it would make them out to be pretty bad in this one. Because, again, they caved to the executive order essentially after Pete Rose was dead and gone, without a chance to truly give him his flowers in the moment. And even still, there are ways in which the MLB truly doesn't want to give that respect to Pete Rose right now. That would just be another way of them doing it to him. And that would not go over well with people at all. Barry Bonds as well. A lot of people want to see Barry Bonds get in the Hall of Fame. For fair reason, even if you question his steroid use. What he did contribute on the baseball field, when you look at the numbers, does stack up highly against the competition. Now, of course, again, you're going to have those questions of him playing the game the right way, because he, in more situations than not, for at least a few seasons, certainly did not. That has been well documented. But again, by far, he was a much better contributor. And for just a little bit longer than Ryan Braun was. I mean, Braun clearly tailed off by the end of his career. Barry Bonds was still going on strong. Now, again, that could be attributed to a number of different things. But, how are you going to look at that and say that Bonds would not get in before Ryan Braun does? Wow, that would be uber disrespectful. And then not to mention as well with some of the other players who are still in eligibility and who have been for much longer at this time. Alex Rodriguez is still on the ballot. A player who also played near the outfield as a shortstop. Without question, Alex Rodriguez would be a Hall of Famer. Of course, again, he also admitted to using steroids and PEDs at some point in his playing career, but not for a long enough period of time to where people even still care that deeply about him. And that's the component of this. That is the main component of this thing. The expression of forgiveness on the part of the MLB. Like, Rose is, although he had the numbers to back it up, and, you can say what you want about him as a person. There are a lot of different things you could say about him as a person. But as a player, he is never going to see his inscription inducted into the Hall of Fame. He will never see it. There's a chance where Bonds may never see it because you've been holding these grudges, and maybe some of them warranted, but you've been holding them for the longest period of time. This Braun case is very, very recent. And you mean to tell me that you're willing to give him a shorter lease and make him wait far less time than both Bonds and Rose ever had to enter the Hall? Like, that just seems wild to me. So again, Braun put together a respectable career, but you factor in how he stacks up against some of his peers, and also the incident he was subject to. And it just makes for a very risque situation on his end. Now, I think at some point down the line, even with this still being in play, there's a chance that he could get in. But it feels like, for one, again, some of the other competition here might usurp him. And also, the MLB, from an optical standpoint, they are going to want to try, or at least I think that they would want to try to right those wrongs first before giving Braun the opportunity to enter the Hall of Fame. At least that is probably what they'd be trying to do. I would believe they're trying to do this. They may just fuck around and not at all get either of Bonds or Rose or McGuire or Sosa in at all. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Alright, on to Edwin Encarnacion. Encarnacion, I've heard of Encarnacion quite a bit. He played up until 2020 after debuting in 2005. So he's got a solid 16 year career to look at. And he got to 1,832 hits, 424 home runs, and also had an overall BA of 260. He had a career high 127 RBIs with 42 home runs in 2016 at the age of 33. Just pretty interesting to say the least. And, obviously as he got older and older, he turned into a DH. Probably one of the better ones of this recent stretch. Like, for him to, up until 2020, really be a strong hitter, to say the least, after the age of 30 is pretty crazy. So, honestly, with him putting together some of his best work recently, that could have him fall in favor with some of these writers who are going to vote on this. I mean, in every single season, from 2012 to 2019, after the age of 29, he had seasons of 42, 36, 34, 39, 42, 38, 32, and 34 home runs, all while consistently logging solid batting averages and also having a fair balance of aggressiveness and discipline at the plate. He did have multiple seasons in a row. Obviously, as a DH, you're trying your best to get the runners in scoring position to reach home base. They are looking on you to drive in runners all the time. So aggressiveness at that position is going to be a little warranted. But to have 3 straight seasons of 130 or more strikeouts is a little crazy. Still, he ended his career as a pretty positive offensive player. Though his defense, again, there's not going to be a lot of weight held there. Because, again, for the latter half of his career, he was strictly a designated hitter. He's not going to be playing any position on the infield. Although that's where he mainly was in his first few seasons. And even then, he was mostly a negative contributor on that front. So that could hurt him a little bit. But still, given the recency of his success, despite not having any individual accomplishments or anything like that outside of 3 All-Star nods, Encarnacion could have a solid chance. Another player that could have a solid chance, even with his WAR being at just 35, is Howie Kendrick. Now, I specifically remember Howie Kendrick for his defense, and they also cite here that he was a 2011 All-Star, a 2019 NLCS MVP en route to their World Series win that year, and also had a career BA of 294. Again, when it comes to him being a bat, if you look just strictly at him being an offensive contributor, you're going to have a hard time figuring out why he's on this list. He was never known for doing his damage on that side of the ball. Even though, again, when you look at consistency, the consistency was there when it comes to hitting for contact. Like, he had multiple seasons batting over 300. And again, to finish with a 294, BA is pretty elite. He had, in a row, 3 different seasons with 150 or more hits. He then also had 181 in 2014 with the Angels. So, from that standpoint, he seems to be valuable enough. You know, even if you're not necessarily driving in runs all the time, I mean, for crying out loud, his career high in home runs was 18. And that was nearly matched in 2019 with just a 17 homer season. If you were asking him to hit for power, he was not going to. He wasn't going to get that done. But everything else, he seemed to do very well in his time as a position player. And again, defensively, like, there's almost no question about what he was doing on that side of the ball. Like, in 2014, his D-WAR ranked 7th. And even if he doesn't make a top 100 list, those contributions eventually led to the Nats being able to win a World Series in 2019. Something they had been searching for ages, essentially since they even became a thing. They were the Montreal Expos. After, a certain point, though, with the 1993 lockout and everything, that was going to change pretty soon. But again, they don't question that. And, even with that being the case, in that stretch, man, he contributed very greatly in that series. I mean, he had a BA of 3.3. Well, 333, I should say, even. Had an OPS over 1,000, and also managed to, in that series, get a solid amount of extra bases. His 4 doubles in that time led the team in batting at that point. He also drove in 4 RBIs. And in what was a series that honestly did not truly end up being as close as expected in the last two games, I should say. Those runs ended up making a huge difference. Is it Hall of Fame worthy at this stage? Again, maybe with a little bit of time, that could happen. It's his very first year of eligibility. So, they're going to have a lot of time to think about this. But I would think so. In a few years. As for other players here, you have Shin-So Chu up here, a 2018 All-Star with a .377 on-base percentage. A player who I'm not all that familiar with, to say the least. And he was not a player who ended up accomplishing much outside of that. But what you can say is that when it comes to overall contribution, he's got a little more. I mean, although he never had a season with over 30 home runs, to have over 200 in your career while batting .275 and being able to get some finishes in MVP voting, that's pretty impressive stuff. He had an overall offensive WAR of 42.1, but again, defensively, compared to some of the other defensive stalwarts in this potential class, he just doesn't stack up. Alex Gordon is another player up here as an 8-time Gold Glover, a 3-time All-Star, a 2-time Platinum Glove Award winner as well. And in his situation, he retired in 2020, which obviously makes sense, and won a 2015 World Series with the Royals. In 2012, his 51 doubles led the league in a year that saw him get a Gold Glove appearance as well. So, from that standpoint, for him to have a 23.8 offensive WAR and also a 7.1 defensive WAR, he's definitely got a solid chance down the line. And I don't know. Again, you can't tell me that his defense is even remotely as good as Andruw Jones was during this time. It's just not possible. But I don't know. That is a solid career. He got 190 home runs, had 1,643 hits, and also had a .257 BA. Nick Markakis is a player I've heard a little about as well. But for him to potentially get a Hall of Fame bid, it'd be pretty interesting to see. I don't know. I'm not gonna lie to you. He's got an All-Star appearance. He's got 3 Gold Glove wins and also has a Silver Slugger award to his name. I don't know. One thing you can say about him, though, is that, at least up until the last 2 seasons of his career with the Braves, he was a pretty durable player. I mean, in every single one of these seasons, he played at least 145 games. Had multiple seasons in which he played damn near all games in the regular season as well. And even if the numbers don't all do him justice, there's something to be said about being available on a consistent basis. Still, I think that Hall of Fame voters would like to see a lot more overall contribution from him. But from that standpoint of availability, like I think he gets a better look down the line. Hunter Pence is another name listed here. He is a four-time All-Star with 244 career home runs, and he won 2 World Series championships. Yeah, okay, so this is interesting. I mean, the accolades are there, but I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. Um, while Pence might be a very good player in his own right, and honestly, with him being able to get 2 championships in San Francisco, he's probably regarded as a little bit of a legend in that organization. But I'm gonna tell you right now, even as a person who wasn't watching baseball like that around this time, because I was very, very young, but I can tell you this. If he ever has a chance of getting in, it is going to have to happen later. Because I know that Giants fans would blow a gasket if he were to get into the Hall of Fame before Buster Posey. Now, Buster Posey, who I think would very much be a first ballot Hall of Famer, is not eligible yet. He will be eligible next year. So that is a player you have to look at first. It's got to be. It has got to be Buster Posey first. It can't be anybody else. And I don't care. That's just how I see it. You know, people are entitled to their opinion, and that's okay. But when I look at what Buster Posey was able to do from the catcher position, I'm like, oh yeah, you gotta get him in there off that alone. And you know, for Pence to be in his spot, again, as a right fielder, there are other right fielders who seem to have a lot more value overall than he did, despite him having 2 championship wins. That's just how I see it. But again, I could be very, very wrong. Gio Gonzalez. This is a person who was a 2-time All-Star and also had 21 wins in 2012, which is pretty damn high to say the least. I'm not gonna lie. He was a 2-time All-Star as well. His ERA, though, of 370, again, it's a subjective thing that honestly seems a little high to me. Again, I could be wrong. But still, even with the 21 wins, and, you know, he did have a career low in ERA in 289 as well, so he was truly dominant during this time. But is that one season enough to justify getting him in, or does that happen to be a sort of anomaly, an outlier? I mean, from other seasons here, like, there are solid cases. I mean, he was not that dominant. And again, it's subjective because some of these wins and losses and also no decisions sometimes come down to how much your batters contribute or don't in a game on a consistent basis. So I guess I can't really, like, disrespect everything he's doing because, you know, you have to take that into account. Like, there are some more respectable seasons from him here, but the voters may not see it that way. That's just what I would say for this one. And Matt Kemp is a player I've heard of repeatedly. He was a 3-time All-Star, a 2-time Gold Glove winner, and a 2-time Silver Slugger. Let's see. I mean, this is also his first year of eligibility, and I mean, in his career, he had 1,808 hits, 287 home runs, 1,031 RBIs, and also had a BA of 284. Yeah, 36.6 offensive WAR is pretty good. He led the league, rather, in offensive WAR with 8.7, en route to a second place finish in MVP voting with a Gold Glove and Silver Slugger win that year, as well as an All-Star appearance. But I'm not gonna lie, when it comes to his fielding, it was a little atrocious. Yeah, I just don't really know if you would give him that. But at the same time, while the defensive WAR might not do him justice, his consistency on that front is there. He had a 3-season streak of defensive games at that position. So if you could be used in those outfield positions that consistently, even if the numbers don't suggest it, they seem to have a lot of trust in him at that time. And so that could help him a little bit. But again, compared to others, it simply may not stack up for him. And then, they have other names here like Jason Kipnis, Daniel Murphy, Rick Porcello, Matt Wieters, Jeff Samardzija, and Chris Davis. I'm somewhat familiar with most of these people. For Wieters and Davis, the Orioles fans out there, if those two were to ever get into the Hall of Fame, that would be great. But I still don't know if voters can really get over the hitless streak that Chris Davis had in 62 consecutive plate appearances. I don't know. Yes, that is one moment in time, and granted, this came at a later stage of his career. But that's still something that seems so inexcusable. And for a player who, did nearly reach the 300 home run milestone, it's hard for me to see that happening. I mean, he's got some of the numbers in his favor, but when you look at that, when you look at him leading the league in strikeouts with over 200 for 2 straight years, and also had 3 with over 190, I don't know. That's a little bold to say that he could get in. He, even with some of those milestones in place, he is not as accomplished as you might believe. As for Wieters, again, another solid piece to this team, but I just don't know if people can say that he really did enough. I mean, he's got 11 years, and granted, he did have 4 All-Star appearances and 2 Gold Glove wins compared to Chris Davis. You would have to look at this from an overall standpoint because the offensive numbers are weaker. So, for both of the Orioles players in question, there's just a little bit of flip-flop. There's too much flip-flopping you have to do here in order to determine whether or not they should be getting in. It's just kind of crazy when you think about it. As for Samardzija, because I do remember Jeff Samardzija, he was a pitcher and spent multiple seasons with the Cubs, A's, White Sox, and also Giants to cap off his career. In 2017, he had the most innings pitched in the NL with the Giants, en route to a season that was very weird. Even if he had the most innings pitched, he happened to lead the league in losses with 15, while tallying 205 strikeouts in 204 hits. So, that's a bit of a weird one. I mean, his best season, his only All-Star season, came in 2014, where he went 7-13 with a 2.99 ERA and also had 202 strikeouts. And again, for a pitcher who was relatively solid, I mean, it just doesn't look the best to have a pitcher in who lost most of the games he appeared in. And again, also some no decisions have to be thrown in there. We've just got to be fair about that. But that's not a promising look. Also, he just barely missed out on getting 1,500 strikeouts. But for him to not even get to that territory, and you have multiple pitchers with over 2,000 and 3,000 in the Hall of Fame already, it would be a bit weird to have that happen. And you could kind of chalk that up to longevity as well if you want. I mean, for him to only get through 13 years compared to some of the other pitchers currently in the Hall of Fame right now might be a little bit underwhelming, to say the least. So he may not. I just wouldn't see it happening. I don't, nah. Yeah, that couldn't go down. I'm not gonna lie. And then, yeah, again, Kipnis, Murphy, and Porcello are all interesting players, but again, when you look at how they stack up against some of the other guys, I just don't know. I mean, hell, there are a lot of guys who are here that could potentially have better shots. I mean, Jimmy Rollins is a player who's been waiting for quite a little bit. And when you look at his career, I mean, hell, he's got a pretty compelling case. Or also, a player like Felix Hernandez, no Mariners bias, this is his second year, and he is a player who is a 6-time All-Star, had the league best ERA in 2 different seasons, won the Cy Young Award in 2010, a season which saw him pitch with a 2.27 ERA across 249.2 innings, leading the AL, getting to face 1,001 batters, which led both leagues, and also struck out 232 different opponents, while winning 13 of 25 credited starts, I should say. Because again, there were probably no decisions thrown in there. He also finished 16th in MVP voting for that respective year. And then in his career, would later go on to have a perfect game. Now again, perfect games are so rare, and literally any pitcher you could think of has gotten somewhat close to pitching a perfect game. But for him to actually accomplish it and do it in the fashion that he did it, that alone might compel some voters. Now again, that doesn't mean that every single person who's gotten a perfect game is in the Hall of Fame, but that kind of contribution was consistent throughout his career, which saw him play all 15 seasons with the Mariners. And, the longevity nor the contribution was there on the part of Semer Zija, for example. When it comes to production, Hernandez produced. Simply put, 25 complete games, with 6 complete games in 2010 across a full season. 5 shutouts led the league in 2012, that same year where he had a perfect game. Career 3.42 ERA while getting to 2,524 strikeouts. Just 2 more seasons saw him have that kind of increase, that margin in strikeouts over Simradzija. Now again, compared to other pitchers, may he be on par with them? Maybe not. But I believe that Felix Hernandez would certainly get in the Hall of Fame. It is just a matter of time with him. But he is certainly deserving of it. And then for other names here, you have Manny Ramirez, Andy Petit, Bobby Abreu, Omar Vizquel. Dustin Pedroia is a name I've heard of a little bit. Yankees fans certainly don't like that name. But he was definitely one of the premier players for the Red Sox during this time. He was a 4-time All-Star, 4-time Gold Glove winner, won 2 World Series, won a Silver Slugger Award, and won an MVP the very year after winning Rookie of the Year for the AL. Now, he just came out guns blazing. And even if, when it comes to hitting for power and shit like that, 140 home runs might not be as comparable as you would expect, but at the same time, his 213 hits led the league that year, 54 doubles led the league that year. He had 118 and 115 runs in back-to-back seasons, both led the AL. And again, another player who, did tail off at the end of his career. Like, he barely played in his last 2 seasons. So I feel like, from that standpoint, that might hurt him, but at the same time, he made the most out of the time he had. Like, he was just nothing but consistent during this time. Finished his career with a 2.99 BA. So you gotta credit him for that. Mark Burley's another name. Francisco Rodriguez is another name. A pitcher here. And also David Wright and Torrey Hunter. I've heard of Hunter. He seems to be more of a defensive outfielder. But again, compared to other guys, I don't know. And then also a lot of other players from the 2020 season who retired after this point. Daniel Murphy's in his first year. Purcell's in his first year. And also Herrera is in his first year. So it's going to be an interesting case. But, again, are all of these guys going to make the Hall of Fame this year? No. You're only going to get 5 in. And I would think that, some combination of players from this list, like in Andruw Jones and Carlos Beltran, maybe Alex Rodriguez, along with other players of the past, could see themselves get in. And then you also have to account for other players who aren't even being mentioned here. I mean, one of the ESPN baseball commentators, broadcasters, threw out David Cohn's name as a potential Hall of Fame bid. Now, David Cohn also does work with ESPN, was working on that same broadcast alongside him, so there might be a little bit of bias to that. But at the same time, he is a player who finished with a 62.3 WAR in his career while getting 5 All-Star wins, All-Star selections, and also won 5 World Series, is one of the more accomplished pitchers you will see in the bid here. He also managed to get a Cy Young win in 1994, a year that saw him get a 2.94 ERA while getting 132 strikeouts. Now again, obviously this was a lockout shortened ordeal here. So, those numbers are going to be trimmed down just a little bit. Even then, he was 16-5 in the games in which he played. So, I mean, that's pretty solid overall. he is also another player who, although this happened later in his career, did get a perfect game. Now, again, you can't just give everybody who gets you can't get everybody in the Hall of Fame who gets a perfect game to their name, but I mean, the accomplishments and the numbers are there for him. So they could just circle all the way back and maybe give him a chance. Who knows? But that'll do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.